Okay, good morning, Masechet Pessachim, Lamed Vav, Amoud Aleph. So at the bottom of the page, third lines, 1, 2, 3, third lines. There in the third big line, you see that it says, when it comes to making matzah, V'shavin she'en nashin et ha'isa b'porshin. We are not allowed to knead the matzah with warm water. And the reason is the warm water, you guys have the third line of the big lines of Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. Second word. So when it comes to water that you can use to knead the dough, you need a cool down water. But if it's a warm water, it's very easy could become chametz. So the Gemara says, "My shna mi menachot." What's the difference with menachot? Titnan. Kol menachot nidoshot b'porshin u'mishtamerin shelo yachmitzu. So you have what is called a mincha. A mincha is many times a matzah offering in the Beit Mikdash for a korban, and there you're allowed to use it with warm water, and you got to be careful that it doesn't become chametz. So why don't we allow it here that you use warm water, but just be careful that it doesn't become chametz. The Gemara says, "Im amru bizrizin, yomru b'shem zrizin." 1 second, who's making the mincha? The mincha is in the Beit Mikdash. The Kohanim are making it. The Kohanim are zrizin. We always have a rule that the Kohen is very yirat shamayim. He knows the halachot. He's on top of his game. A regular guy, you're going to give to every Jew in his house around the world for generations. It's hard to know if he's going to be able to be careful. The Gemara says, "Yachi miltat nami latit." So if that's true and Kohanim are careful, we should also allow litita. Litita is when we want to soften the kernel. We have the wheat, and you put it in very, very hot water. You put it in, and that's going to make it easier to crush afterwards. So you're going to put it in, get the water out, and then you're going to crush it. The problem is, if you put it in water and you don't dry it properly, it's going to become chametz when you crush it. So if the Kohanim are zrizin in the Beit Mikdash, you should also allow litita. And we know that you don't. Why does Rabbi Zera say, Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Bechana, Yirmiyah, Amar Shmuel chitin shen menachot, and notitin otan. You're not allowed to do litita, to immerse them in scalding water, even for the chita of the menachot. The Gemara says, "Lisha bizrizin ita, litita leita bizrizin." So the Gemara says, actually, the litita is not but the Kohanim. Everybody brings his flour ready to use. You bring your flour to the Kohen, the sonnet, the crushed flour. So that's being done by a regular person. Now is the kneading, that seems to be done by the Kohen. But the Gemara says it's also not true. The lisha mita bizrizin v'akitiv v'yatzak alei shemen v'via en Kohen. Even the lisha is not through the Kohen, because the pasuk says you do your lisha, you pour on it oil, and you give it to the Kohen. So the Gemara says mikimitza ve'elach mitzvat v'akiuna. Mitzvat kiuna nimed al yetzika or benina shekshera b'kol adam. You know that when the Kohen gets his flour with the oil, he takes a little bit of a kimitza like this and he throws it on the mizbeach. So that's a mitzvah of the Kohen. Everything before that is a mitzvah by every regular guy. So if every regular guy is allowed to do it, so why are you telling me that lisha with hot water is allowed for the menachot? So the Gemara says, Lisha nehid b'zrizin leita. You're right. It's not the Kohen doing lisha. He's not kneading it. Bimkom zrizin ita. It's being done in the Beit Mikdash. You come to the Beit Mikdash with your flour. Flour can be done at your house. Ita. Damarmo b'lila kshera bizar. Chutz lechomat azara pesula. So the lisha can be done by a regular guy, but it's supervised by the Kohanim. So you come with your flour from your house. There you put it together with the water. So there we're going to allow you to put it together with warm water because the Kohen is supervising that shouldn't become chametz. You could do it, but we want to make sure that we have a supervision. So the litita is done at your own house with no supervision. So make it very simple. When it comes to something that could become chametz, we're very scared. There are two things that could become chametz. One is litita and one is lisha with hot water. Litita is I take the kernel in hot water in order to make it soft to be able to crush, and that's done at your house in the privacy of your own home, in the comfort of your own home. Nobody's checking you out, so we don't let you do it. Because if we let you do it, you might make a mistake. It might be cracked. By the way, if the kernel's whole, it doesn't become chametz. If there's a crack in the kernel, it becomes chametz. So if it's a cracked kernel, people don't know the differences. It's going to chametz. Don't do it. However, when it comes to matzah, you're also doing it in your own house. hot water, warm water, it's going to become chametz. But the chametz, meaning the matzah of the Bet HaMikdash, even though you're doing it by the supervision of the Kohen, so we allow it because the Kohen is rizin and they're able to guide you to make sure you make the proper halachos. Umay shnam minachot minchat ha'omer. So we have that minchat ha'omer. The korban of the omer also needs to be chametz. It can't be matzah. Sorry, it needs to be matzah, not chametz. And there we say that you actually do the litita for the omer. The Gemara answers tzibur shani. It's done in tzibur. So the korban ha'omer is done in a big tekes. It's done in front of the Beit Din. So the Beit Din is there and they're watching the litita. The regular guy's doing it, he's doing the litita, the korban omer, but it's being supervised by the Beit Din, and it's not in the Mekom Beit Mikdash, but it's supervised by the Beit Din. So anyways, anytime you're going to get warm water next to your flour or next to your kernels, we're scared unless there's a supervision. Tanu Rabanan. Okay, now can a Kohen do his mitzvah matzah with bikurim? You're a Kohen, I give you bikurim. And I give you bikurim, and you're going to go take them. I can give you wheat because the 7 things we give bikurim. We give dates, figs, all the 7 species. I also give wheat as bikurim. So the Kohen's going to get bikurim, wheat, and he's going to make a matzah with it. Is he allowed to do his mitzvah matzah with bikurim? Yachol, read it again. Tanu Rabanan, Yachol yotzi adam yidecho v'to bikurim. Tamu nomar, bikol moshvotechem tochlu matzot. Matzah, you eat matzot in every domain, in every house, everywhere you are. Matzah nechelet b'kol moshvotechem. Matzah that can be eaten anywhere. Yatsu bikurim shenechanim b'kol moshvotechem ela b'Yerushalayim. Divrei Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So you know that bikurim can only be eaten in Jerusalem.
If somebody brings flour as bikurim, he doesn't do the letita at home. He doesn't put it in water and all that.
Yeah, we moved on to that. We're not talking about anywhere the way of making matzah. Hot water, we know what.
When he brings the flour,
he's bringing flour.
I'm
bringing kernels of wheat. Mr. Cohen, I'm mitzvah bikurim. You're Cohen. Good. I'm not going to buy $100 matzah. I'm going to make my own matzah of this wheat. Good wheat. You're not allowed to. Because the pasuk says, "B'kol moshvotechem." You got to eat matzah anywhere, and bikurim can only be eaten in Jerusalem. The Kohen is only allowed to eat bikurim in Yerushalayim, so that's why it's not kosher, and that is according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Akiva omer matzah maror. So Rabbi Akiva says actually there's a hekesh between matzah and maror. The pasuk says matzah and matzah umirurim yochlu. Eat them together. So the Gemara says maror ma maror shenu bikurim. You have Gemara's over there, the blue Gemara's. Ma matzah ma maror shenu bikurim. You know that bikurim, there's no species. Bikurim, you can't do matzah. You can't do maror bikurim. The blue ones right there above you, a little bit up. There ones, the blue ones, small blue ones. Okay, so what is maror? It's a potato, it's a lettuce. There's not the species. So since in the species of maror there's no bikurim, therefore you cannot do maror with your bikurim. So you can't do matzah with your bikurim. It's a hekesh. And that says, the Gemara says, matzah shel bikurim. But the Gemara challenges that. Ima maror shel bino bikurim. 1 second. Okay, let's extend that a little bit further. In the bikurim, there's no species that will be able to give you the food that you need to do maror. Af matzah she'en b'mina bikurim. Otzi chitinu sirim sheyesh mina bikurim. Okay, so if that's true, so maybe flour of wheat and of barley should not be valid for the matzah because those are species of bikurim. Since matzah and maror are together, and maror, there's no species that can make it from bikurim. So therefore, any species that is not in bikurim, I could do matzah, and I can't do wheat with the matzah. That's a havamina way if you're comparing the two. The Gemara says, Tamu nomar matzot riba. No, the truth is, since we wrote matzot so many times in Torah, so we're adding another permission. So it's true that there has a hekesh between matzah and maror, but we're giving a leniency because of an extra time that it's written matzah. The Gemara doesn't like that. Matzot riba afilu bikurim nami. If you want to add, so who said what you're going to add? Add even bikurim. So the Gemara answers, actually Rabbi Akiva changed his mind. Hadar be Rabbi Akiva me'acha. Good morning. Hadar be Rabbi Akiva. This guy over here, he's the brother-in-law of Ariel Avital. So I was with him in the room the whole time. So he was on fire. So he came to Moldova, and in the line of the security said, "Oh, the guy came and gave him a zap." Give him a zap. A zap and a hit, get it, move on. In Moldova, they weren't happy with us, huh?
No, they weren't happy.
Wow. Okay, so Rabbi Akiva changed his mind. Adar be Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya Yachod. So really, Rabbi Akiva doesn't learn from Mar. He's going to learn also like Rabbi Yossi Akrini. How do we know this is true? Yachod Yossi Adam Yidechudo Bibikurim Tanu Noma Bikon Moshvotechem Tuchulu Matzot. But Matzah Neched Bikon Moshvot. Yotzu Bikurim Shen Neched Bikon Moshvot Yerushalayim. So it's again the Hekesh that we saw with Yossi Akrini. Now this is a Braita. We don't know who the author of the Braita is. It doesn't say it's Rabbi Akiva. We're going to prove though that it is Rabbi Akiva. Yachod Shani Motzi Af Masech. Maybe Ma'aser Sheni, Tamu Lomar, Matzot Riba. Okay, so it's something that you got. Whoever was here yesterday heard this, but basically the Gemara said yesterday, it's a machloket if you can do your matzah with Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni is from your field. After you give to the Kohen Truma, you give Ma'aser Rishon. You take a second. You put aside another 10%, and that's called Ma'aser Rishon. And the Ma'aser Rishon is meant for you to eat in Jerusalem during the three Chagim. Can I take the wheat of my Ma'aser Sheni, and can I make that into matzah? And it's a machloket. Rabbi Yossi says you cannot, and Rabbi Akiva says you can. He says you're allowed to. Rabbi Akiva says you're allowed to. So here we're asking, could it be that even Ma'aser Sheni is not allowed to make a matzah? The Gemara says it is. It is allowed. Why is it allowed? Matzot, riba. So since it's written so many times in matzot in the Torah, so we're adding in a permission. And there's a permission, even though Masechet Sheni should only be eaten in Jerusalem. Same thing, same smart. So since the Torah is adding, so we're adding this. The Gemara said, why would you're adding one? We have a ribui. So you said bikurim no matzah sheni yes. What's the difference? My answer is marbeli matzah sheni sheyesh lo heter bikon moshvot. Really matzah sheni lichatchila should not be eaten in Jerusalem, but there is a heter b'diavad it becomes tameh. Bikurim can never be eaten outside of Jerusalem. Matzah sheni there is a leniency. K'di Rabbi Eliezer, and he says k'di Rabbi Eliezer umotziani bikurim shenen heter bikon moshvot. Damar Rabbi Eliezer. Maser Sheni Shnitma Shipotinoto Afilu B'Yerushalayim. Maser Sheni that became Tameh, you're allowed to redeem it even in Jerusalem. You have to take it out of Jerusalem and eat it outside Jerusalem. Shnimar lo kilo tochal oto kilo tochal oto. So kilo tochal seeto. Ben set elachila. So really simple pasuk is talking about over there when you live in Haifa, Beersheba, or Tzfat, or wherever you live. And you have a lot of Maser Sheni, and the simple pshat of se'eto means to carry it. It's too much for you to carry. So what do? You put it on money. You redeem the Kiddush of Maser Sheni, you put it on money, and you bring that money to Jerusalem. But here he says a drash. What does it mean se'eto? You can't eat it. Where do we know that se'eto is called eating? Ve'en set ela achila, shnemar v'isa masaot met panav. Yosef Tzaddik, when he gave to Binyamin and all the brothers food, it says he gave them v'isa masaot. So masaot also means meals. So it's called. Okay, my mistake, sorry. Man shamat le'damav maser sheni nafik be Rabbi Akiva. Okay, madli bikurim kol moshavterem shma mina adar. So really, yesterday in the page, we said that Rabbi Yossi Aglidi says you can't use maser sheni. Here there's a braita that says you can use maser sheni. So the braita that's saying you can use maser sheni is definitely only Rabbi Akiva. And here's how he learns it from, that you can redeem it. And therefore you see that he's learning that bikurim cannot be used because of bikor mashvotechem. So really Rabbi Akiva changed his mind, and we're not going tomorrow. Everybody agrees that bikurim cannot be used because they can only be eaten in Jerusalem, and we want matzah that can be eaten in every place. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi Aglidi tipuk le min lechem oni. So now, yesterday we learned that Rabbi Yossi Aglidi says you cannot eat matzah, you cannot do matzah with maser sheni. And really the pasuk, because the Torah says that when you're maser sheni, you have to do a vidui masrot. Every 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, you have to do to check up if you gave all your maaser. You don't got to give it every year. Within 3 years, you should give all the maaser. And there's a statement to say over there. And what you say is when you're doing vidur masrot Hashem, I gave all my maaser, and it says lo achalti mimenu beoni. I didn't eat it be'oni be'aninut. In other words, when a person is in a state of sadness, onen, sadness, which is an onen, which is a person who's a mourner, or between the mourning stage, meaning when a person passes away to the time we bury him, that's called an onen. You're not eating maser sheni in a state of sadness and aninut. So that was Shitat Rabbi Yossi Aglidi, that you can't eat maser sheni in a state of aninut. If that's true, And so, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglidi, you should also learn that you can't eat bikurim, because bikurim also needs to be eaten in simcha. And I'll explain. The wheat that is maser sheni, if a guy's a mourner, can't eat it. Regular wheat, so therefore, maser sheni, you can't eat it. And matzah can be eaten by everyone. That's what we said yesterday. Let's think about that. The flour of matzah can be, I could use any flour. This flour could be eaten by a mourner, and this flour could make matzah with it. This a flour that could be service everything. Maser sheni cannot be used for everything, so therefore you cannot make matzah from it. You cannot maser sheni cannot be eaten by an oni. So if that's true, do that also for bikurim. Because bikurim, the Gemara says, why did he learn from you can't eat it outside of Yerushalayim? Learn it from you can't eat it be'aninut. The Gemara says, Mi shenichad ba'oni yatsa zeh shem nichad b'simcha. So you see that bikurim only needs to be eaten b'simcha. So the Gemara answers, because Rabbi Yossi Aglidi holds like Rabbi Shimon, Sabarik Rabbi Shimon, Titania, bikurim asurin neonen. Bikurim is asur to an onen, divrei, that's according to Chachamim. But Rabbi Shimon matir. So Rabbi Yossi Aglidi says bikurim is not like maser sheni. Bikurim can be eaten by an onen, and that's why you're allowed to make matzah out of the maser sheni, out of the bikurim, if it wouldn't be for the fact that you can't eat it outside of Jerusalem. My time of the Rabbanan. Why can bikurim not be eaten by an onen? The Gemara says, Lo tuchal lechol b'sharecha. Let's read the pasuk together in Torah Or Dalet. Lo tuchal lechol b'sharecha. Speaking of maser sheni. When you have maser sheni from Haifa or from wherever you are and you get to Jerusalem, the halacha says, Lo tuchal lechol b'sharecha. You can't eat it in your city. Maser degenecha v'tirusha v'tzarecha. The wheat, the dagan, the oil, the wine, bekorot. If you have a bechor, you can only eat in Jerusalem. Bekarecha, tzonecha, kol nedarecha. Anytime you give a nedava or a neder, asher tidor, b'nidvotecha, any nedava they give to the Beit HaMikdash, you got to eat in Jerusalem. And then it says, utrumat yadecha. Now that trumat yadecha is maser sheni. It's not truma. It's called trumat yadecha. So you see, lo tuchal lechol b'sharecha v'amar trumat yadecha. Elo bikurim. These are bikurim. I'm sorry, my mistake. So the Trumat Yadecha is Bikurim. In this pasuk, it's saying Maser and Bikurim. Maser cannot be eaten in Oni, and there it says Trumat Yadecha, Bikurim can be eaten in Oni also. Ma Maser asur neonen, Bikurim asur neonen. Rabbi Shimon, Truma Karina. But Rabbi Shimon says that it's mutter to eat by noinen because he says with the Torah changed it. They didn't call it bikurim. It called it truma. Ketruma. Ma truma muter noinen. Bikurim mutar noinen. Truma can be eaten by noinen. If a guy's a kohen and he's a mourner, he's allowed to eat his truma. So since the Torah changed this pasuk bikurim to call it truma, you're allowed to eat it onen. The Gemara says Rabbi Shimon need the kash the hekesh leite simcha miha michtav ketiba bim. Okay, Rabbi Shimon, I understand that there's no hekesh. There's no hekesh with maser, but it still says simcha when it comes to bikurim. V'samachta b'kol tov. So you know that the halacha is that when you come to Yerushalayim and you give the bikurim, you got to read a tekes. And it's in Parshat Kitavon. There he says you read the whole thing that they gave you, and it says over there, "V'samachta b'kol tov." Hashem, you made me happy with I'm happy with all the good things you gave me. So you see that can only be eaten in simcha, or the word simcha exists in bikurim. So if it's simcha, it can be used for an onen. The Gemara says, "Ahud is man simcha." No, that's coming to tell you when you can give bikurim. You can only give it in the zman of simcha, which is still Sukkot. Like for example, data, udeata, detnan, me'atzeret v'adchag mevi bekorem. When do you bring bikurim? You bring it from atzeret, from Shavuot, all the way till Chag HaSukkot, which is Chag HaSimcha. That's when you bring the bikurim. That's when you read the whole tekes. From that time onwards until Chanukah, you bring the bikurim, but you don't read the tekes. So basically, the fact that it says over there, "V'samachta b'kol hatov," when you're going to read that thing, you need to be in the zman of simcha. It has nothing to do with an onen or not. Bottom line, you can't use bikurim, and it's learned from where? From b'kol moshvotechem lo tochlu matzot, because bikurim can only be in Jerusalem. We want matzah can be learned everywhere. And even though there would be a svara to say that anything that can't be eaten by an onen can't be made matzah. Well, he holds that bikurim can be eaten as an onen. And even though it says v'simcha, that's to tell you when you bring bikurim. You only bring bikurim till Chag HaSimcha, which is Chag HaSukkot. The Gemara goes back to Tana Rabbanan. Lechem oni prat lechalutz. So you got to use Good morning, John. You got to use when the first second to last small lines on Lamed Vav Amoud Bet. Bezat Hashem. Tanu Rabbanan lechem oni. So the Torah calls matzah lechem oni. Prat lechalut. Chalut means you take it and you make a bagel. When you take the dough and you put it in scalding water, it makes it more chashuv. A bagel is more special than a regular sliced piece of bread. So you got to get lechem. It's a tzura. You make it nice. Has to be lechem oni, a poor man's bread. Ule ashisha. And ashisha is interesting. It's actually a very, very big, like a huge challah, a huge matzah. You can't make it too big. Like it has to be a little bit modest. It can't be boiled. It can't be like a bagel. It can't be too big. Yachol lo yitzeh adam b'chol v'toel b'pat hadra. Pat hadra is really the cheapest bread. Meaning there is two types of flours. There is soret mincha. When you take out all the mursan. The mursan is like the husk on top of the thing, and you take it off before you crush the flour. So you can make flour that's soret, and then you have the mursan bread, and you actually make the bread out of this like bran. It's like very coarse. It's a harder bread. It's a bad bread. So since you're telling me lochem oni, and you already tell me that I can't boil it, and I can't make it too nice and too big, so maybe I need to use the cheapest flour, the worst flour, which is called pat hadra, which means we took away its hod. Hadar, hod ve'adar, we take away the had, hadra, we took it away. Tamunoma, matzot riba. No, we have so many times it's written matzah that you're allowed to do something a little bit better. Next level, then you don't need to go the worst. Va'afilu kematzot shel Shlomo. You're even allowed to make nice matzot like Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech was the richest king, and so you can assume that his sudas were the top sudas. So even a matzah like Shlomo HaMelech. Im ken matuman lechem oni. So why does it say lechem oni? Prat lechalut u'lashisha. Yeah, just to tell you they can't have a bagel. You can't boil it in water before you bake it, and you can't make it too big. So we have one miut, and we have a ribui, and we're mima'et, the top quality. We don't want the next level, we want the regular level. How do we know that a shisha, big breads, is something important? It says that when you got that the Mishkan, the Aron was stolen by the Philistine. At a certain point, David Melech brought it back. He brought it back to where to know. Anyways, on that day was a big simcha, and they gave out food to everybody there. Everybody there that witnessed this, they got like they got a basket over there. They got a handout. We give him bread. We give him ashpar echat. We gave him an ashpar. What is these things? We took a bull and we cut it in 6. Everybody got a 1/6 of a bull. Go home and make a nice meal. Then what is ashisha? Echad mishisha be'efa. Efa is a huge amount of flour. We gave everybody an ashisha, which is a big amount of flour to make his bread and make his matzah. Upriga de Rav Shmuel. That's what we said ashisha. The Shmuel said ashisha garva de chamra. He gave him a bottle of wine. Some say that ashisha, Shmuel said it was not wheat, it was not flour, it was a big, nice lechaim, a nice bottle to go home with.
A fashel yain.
Huh?
A fashel yain. It's a wine bread made with wine.
Garva
It's a jug of wine.
Oh, the Rashi said a fashel yain.
Where's Rashi? Ashisha, glusa, drash, shlomo, garva. Efa shel yain. That doesn't make sense to me. You see over here, pitam shel yain. They changed it to kitve yad necheskel. Okay, the Gemara continues. Dichtiv ve'oavei ashishai anavim. It says over there that Hosha is reprimanding Am Yisrael and telling, I love you and I want you to be tzaddikim, and you guys, oavei ashishai anavim. You guys just like bottles of wine. Come on. Tanu Rabbanan. En ofin pat ava bePesach. You can't make big bread of matzah on Pesach. We're assuming that right now, if the matzah is too thick, you can't be shomer to chametz. It can't be too big. Bet Shammai, that is the way Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel matirim. Bet Hillel says mutar. Bekama patava. What is a thick bread that Bet Hillel says you're allowed to? What's the maximum that you're allowed to make a matzah? Amar Avuna tefach. It's the size of a tefach, this big. Meaning the matzah cannot be this thick. Up to this thick you can make it, but not thicker than this. Who's going to eat that matzah? By the way, it's not. This is. We're going to change this in a second. Sheken matzinu benechem apanim. You know that in the Beit Mikdash there was bread, and it was called lechem apanim. And the lechem apanim was 1 tefach, because it's called lechem apanim, and the smallest face is a tefach. Even a skinny guy is a tefach. So therefore, the lechem apanim need to be tefach. And by the way, lechem apanim was matzah. It wasn't chametz. I didn't know that. First time I knew that. It wasn't allowed to be chametz. It had to be matzah. So you see over there that if you want to make matzah, got to be the maximum is a tefach.
What do you mean
the thickness.
No, the 12 breads.
Yeah, they were matzah.
Oh,
They were not
matzah?
chametz. Yeah, they were thick, but they were not chametz. They would bake them very quickly. They wouldn't let them come chametz. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
The Gemara says, "Matkiv Rav Yosef." Yeah, that's the pshat. That can't be the pshat. Why can that not be pshat? Okay, it's a thick thing like that. It's gonna become chametz. If you want to let in the Bet Mikdash, that's Kohanim. We said there's rizim, they know what they're doing. You let every guy do a thick matzah like that. You know that any bread in the Bet Mikdash, they had to give it over here. Rashi says, I think 200 times to knead it, and 300 hits to hit it. You know that baf. You know in
Like the
matzah. Like the matzah. 300, 500 hits. So that was prevented before becoming matzah. From chametz, we can let every guy do in his house. You can't allow that. In the Beit Mikdash, they only use dry firewood, which is very hot. They wouldn't use moist one. A guy in his house, he has moist wood. It's not going to give a good fire. He's going to use it, and that's going to make it take longer to bake, and it's become chametz. By the way, the oven in the Beit Mikdash was a steaming oven. It was a very hot oven, which is always being used. You're going to light your oven, it's not going to be so hot. It's going to become chametz. In the Beit Mikdash, they had a metal oven, and everybody got in his house. Most people had a pottery, a clay oven. So it's going to become chametz if you let it become this big. So actually, we're changing the pshat. That's the means pat ava. And Amar Rav Yirmiyah baraba she'irted Rebbe. So Rav Yirmiyah says, I asked my rabbi, Bichud Umanu Rav. And who was my Rebbe? It was Rav. I asked him straight, one-on-one. I asked him this. Some say it's Rav that asked his Rebbe, which is Rabbeinu HaKadosh. My pat ava pat meruba. No, it has nothing to do with matzah. It has nothing to do with chametz. It's you can't fill the oven with extra bread. On Yom Tov, are you allowed to? I only need one bread. Can I fill the oven with 12 breads? So Beit Hillel says yes. Beit Shammai says no. Pat ava. So why is it called thick bread? It's not thick bread. It's a lot of breads. It's pat meruba. By the way, what's the reason between machloket? Because according to Beit Shammai, you're preparing not for Yom Tov. I make the dough. Anyways, I'm just gonna make 12 breads. Anyways, it's the same. So you're doing extra work. You're shaping them. You're kneading them. You're putting them in the oven. You're baking it. You're gonna take them out. And Beit Hillel says no, it's better because the fuller oven is gonna make one bread taste better. If you only cook one bread, it tastes not so good. If you have a full oven, it's going to make the bread taste better. So it's actually kavod yom tov to fill up a full oven. So that's the machloket over here. So the whole braita that we had over here, are you allowed to make a thick bread or thin bread? It's not. A thick bread is a lot of breads. Beit Hillel says yes. Beit Shammai says no. Why is it called thick? It should be called numerous. The Gemara says, why is it called patava? Mishum denifishi benisha. Because it is av when it is in a dough. I make 12 breads out of one big dough. So it is thick when it is a dough. And it could be a slang. You know, I was in France, I heard all kinds of slangs over there. It's not the French they speak here. It's like a lot of words.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the slang of a lot of breads was a thick bread. In England also have some funny slangs over there, huh? Some funny words we had over there. In England also. We're in London. My taima. So the Gemara says, my taima. Okay, so what's the reason? For Beit Shammai, you're working too much on Yom Tov. The Gemara says, Ma'ira Pesach. If it'll be Yom Tov nami. So that's nothing to do with Pesach. It's every Yom Tov. Why do we say on Pesach he can't do it? It's every single Yom Tov. The Gemara says, Enach nami. You're right. The Tana, when he was teaching, he was teaching a lot of dinim of Pesach, so we added that din in there, but it has nothing to do with Pesach. Tanya Namyachi, Bet Shammai Umrim, Enofin Pat Ava Biyom Tov. Bet Hillel Matrin. We have another bride that says this din on Yom Tov. The Gemara continues. Tan Rabbanan Yotzin Bepat Nikiya. Ubehadra'a, you're allowed to use a good fine flour bread for your matzah. Ubehadra'a, and the hadra is when you use a coarse flour, you're allowed to use it as well. Ubesirikin amitsuyarim bepesach, and even a matzah that has a little design in it. You know, when you get the flour, when you get the dough, you can make a little aleph in there, a bet in there. You can make a picture, a smiley face, and you can have a picture on the matzah. So you're allowed to use a picture, a matzah with a picture on it. And even though you shouldn't really do that, because when you're going to be making nice pictures, it's going to take you too long. It could come comments. So you're not supposed to do that. But if you did it, it's kosher. Amar Rav Yehuda, Dvar zeh shal Baitus ben Zuni nechamim. So a certain baker, his name was Baitus, he asked the rabbis, what's the big deal? I want to make a nice picture on the matzah and I'm going to make more money. Because the lady's going to start making picture. It's going to take too much time. She's going to become chametz. Listen, I'm going to make a tfus. I'm going to make a stamp. The picture like the mold. I'm going to make a mold and I'm going to put it in. It's going to get a nice picture. Esheli matzah you're going to get. You're going to get esheli matzah. The Gemara says, it's going to go fast. It's going to go fast. You know what people are going to say? The Mary explained over here. Yeah, only baitus is allowed. Ma pitom, everybody's allowed. And they don't know that you have a tfus. So everybody's going to start doing it with their finger, with their pen. It's going to be a problem. So we don't allow it because of that problem that could come out. Amar Rabbi bar Tzadok, Pam echad nichnasti echar Abba lebed Rabban Gamliel. So Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok said, I wonder when my father Tzadok, we went to the house of the Nasi, Rabban Gamliel. And they brought him matzahs with pictures on Pesach. I told my father, 1 second, Tati, isn't it we're not supposed to make pictures on the matzah? Amar li bini, lo, yeah, the baker can't make, but at the house he can make. So therefore it was from his house. Really, a baker is allowed to, but a regular guy can't. So it was machloket what type of matzah he brought him with pictures. This seems to be a contradiction to what we said before, because we said before that you cannot do it, even with tfus. Here, according to Rabban Gamliel, it seems you're allowed to do it, and it's not clear who can do it. Can a baker do it? So the tzvaras can be two ways. The baker can't do it because he wants it to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, it's going to take more time because he's selling it. But the regular guy doesn't care how it comes out. Or the baker doing it all the time, so he's going to do it faster. But the regular person might schlep. So therefore, there's two mandamals, and therefore today nobody does this. I've never seen ever a matzah with these things on. And by the way, do you see
there is.
Yeah.
The French matzah. It's not. It's a matzah shira, but.
Really? Wow.
The matzah.
We need 2 more minutes. We need 2 more minutes. Plus, we're catching up. Now we're on page. We're just caught up. Amoud, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Osin srikin kimin rikikin, ven osin srikin kimin glus kaot. So Rabbi Yossi says you can make them on thin matzahs, but you can't make them on thick matzahs. What is the difference between the two? I need to see Rashi right here. Because thin ones don't become, says Rashi, become chametz quickly. Thick ones become Rashi quickly. Very quickly, we're finishing with this. Tanu Rabbanan. Asuf ginin v'aduv shinin v'iskartin. You know what, we're going to stop here. Chazak u baruch.
Ready? You did 2.5 only.
Yeah.